session as part of the Norman Borlaug Institute for International Agriculture's seminar series for this semester. Thank you all for joining us. I just wanted to first make sure that you can hear me. So anybody give me a thumbs up? All right, Aggies, excellent. Well, as you know, my name is Dr. Elsa Morano, and I have the privilege of serving as director of the Borlaug Institute. And so it is a great privilege for me to tell you about the speakers that we have lined up for you this afternoon. Before I do that, I wanted to let you know that after their presentation, you're more than welcome, please, to either through the chat room, submit a question. In fact, that's probably the best way to do it. So just hold on until the end of the presentation for when those questions will be addressed. As you know, this Borlaug seminar series is something that we try to do every semester. It's been a little tricky with COVID, of course, but we are so glad that this semester we restarted the seminar series and had an excellent presentation a few weeks ago by Dr. B.B. Singh, who's an adjunct professor here at Texas A&M University, and he provided a wonderful talk on the situation in India in terms of agriculture and development in general. But this afternoon, I am absolutely thrilled to have a team presentation, okay? This is a team of Texas A&M graduate students that I'm gonna introduce to you, Mr. Ryan Staples, Mr. Garrett Brogan, Ms. Danette Philpott, and Ms. Micah Dado. They competed and captured third place in the Norwegian Business School Global Case Competition. And in case you don't know what that is, it's a virtual global competition with the goal to generate game-changing solutions for the United Nations Food Systems Summit. Well, Ryan Staples is a student of the MBA program at the Mace Business School. He's studying supply chain management, and he served as the team captain. Garrett Brogan is a master's student in the Agricultural Leadership, Education, and Communications Department here in the College of Agriculture and Life Sciences, with an emphasis in international agriculture is what he is studying. Danette Philpott is a doctoral student also in the ALIC department. She is studying with an emphasis in international development and agriculture education. And Micah is a master's student also in the ALIC department with an emphasis in international agriculture, and importantly, is a research assistant at the Borlaug Institute for International Agriculture here with us. Well, the team's collaboration and tremendous teamwork resulted in success in this competition. I want to tell you a little bit more about the competition itself. It started all in March the 5th, so it hasn't even been a month that this whole thing started. And so 85 teams from around the world, from universities around the world, competed in the first round, which was from March the 5th through the 7th. After the case was announced by the Norwegian University on March the 5th, teams had 24 hours to submit their solution to the case that was proposed by the Norwegian University. And so teams presented on March the 7th, and from those 85 teams, 15 were chosen for the semifinals. And of those 15 teams, only three were from universities in the United States: the University of Southern California, the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania, and Texas A&M University, our team. Well, teams had 2 weeks to work on their game-changing solution until they would compete again on March the 21st in the semifinal round. And after the semifinal round, there were only 3 teams that would be chosen to compete in the finals. And those 3 teams were our team at Texas A&M University, and we competed against the University of Porto from Portugal and the University of Technology in Sydney, Australia. So the teams were basically challenged to come up with a solution to transform the food system, looking at what the impact would be at scale of their solution, what actionability would result, and how sustainable it would be. So without telling you any more, I want to go ahead and introduce the team and let them go ahead and begin their presentation. As I said, at the end of their presentation, we can certainly entertain questions that you may have, but we are exceedingly proud of Team Greenbelt, which earned third place overall in a competition of 85 universities. So we're super proud of them. And so without further ado, Team Greenbelt.
Thank you so much, Dr. Morano. It is such an honor on behalf of my team to be here and presenting what we presented in this competition. And so the game plan, how we're going to go through this is present exactly what we presented in this competition. So it'll take about 15 minutes to do that. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the next steps that our team is taking because, before we even did this competition, we knew we didn't want it to stop there. And so we have next steps already in place and we're excited to share that. And then we will open it up for questions, recommendations, advice that anyone has because, we're all students, we're all here to learn, and we are very thankful to have this opportunity.
There are currently more than 15 million people in the country of Uganda that are suffering from chronic malnutrition. That's more than 1 in every 3 people living within that country. And this tragedy actually stems from a gender inequality problem. In the country of Uganda, 80% of the food that is consumed is produced by women, which in and of itself is not a problem, but for every 1 pound of food produced by women, a man can produce 3. And this is because they have access to knowledge through extension programs that women do not have. These are programs led by local universities that will send agents to these rural communities to teach them best agricultural practices. And women on the farms doing the work and caring for their family members have not been able to attend. As a result, the entire country of Uganda is producing food at 50% of its capacity. So the question we set out to answer today is, what could Uganda do to combat its agricultural gender disparity and the resulting malnutrition crisis? In looking at potential solutions, we wanted to address 3 problems simultaneously: the malnutrition, the gender gap, and the knowledge gap. We first considered aquaponic systems, taking fish and putting them in the water used for the crops. As a result, the crop yields would become better and the consumption of protein from the fish would improve overall nutrition. But these systems would do nothing inherently to address the gender inequality gaps, although it would improve some knowledge gaps. Next, we considered working with local legislators to secure land ownership rights for women. More people farming more land results in more food, and this would absolutely address a significant concern with gender in Uganda. But these women on their own farms would be no more productive than they are currently working on farms owned by men. Lastly, we considered taking already established extension programs and enhancing them, taking the content that would normally be shared with them in person by an officer, putting it onto a tablet, and mailing those tablets to women to become empowered through education. As a result of that education and tablet program, their overall output of food would increase. And technology has been shown to address gender gap concerns, and they would absolutely become more knowledgeable and empowered. We recommend Uganda seriously considers our tablet extension program as a way to combat its malnutrition problem. This solution will actually address 5 sustainable development goals: zero hunger, gender equality, reduce inequalities, sustainable cities and communities, and life on land. To discuss our idea in more detail, we'll first hear from Micah about the rollout, then we'll discuss the curriculum, Garrett the impact and scalability, and I will finish up with the financials. We'll now learn more about the program from Micah.
Thank you, Ryan. Through our research, we found that tablet adoption has the potential to be culturally viable in Uganda. By engaging with stakeholders such as the Ugandan University, Makerere University, and their College of Agricultural and Environmental Sciences, and the Uganda Ministry of Agriculture Extension Services, it provides an opportunity for our program to be a bottom-up Ugandan-led project with Greenbelt support. Another piece of supporting evidence is technology is already present and accepted in Uganda. Various studies suggest mobile phone use has been widely accepted, especially by women in Uganda, which is positively and significantly associated with household income, gender equality, and nutrition. Finally, by leveraging existing community-based extension, it will assist in facilitating innovation of sustainable agriculture and reach rural Ugandan women in a cost-effective way. These research points support our conclusion that using tablets to deliver extension information would be culturally accepted. Now, in order to tackle this food system opportunity, we suggest the following timeline. An application will be available for 100 women to receive a tablet after they apply. This tablet will have pre-uploaded lesson plans created through collaboration with the university in a 6-month time period. Women can watch videos, listen, and read this vital information in order to reach all potential audiences. The tablets and a charging pack will then be delivered to the women via the Postal Service, Posta Uganda, or in person through an extension agent the following 2 months. The last step is for the women to complete a visual how-to guide before there is a check-in from a staff member 1 week after receiving the tablet. This timeline provides guidance of how this program will be rolled out, but as with any new program, we anticipate some challenges and have created ways to address them. In order to have accountability and ensure the tablet stays in the hands of the women, we will partner and consult with a local civil sector organization such as Field of Hope, who would aid in the selection of women as they already have an established education program and relationship with Ugandan women. The next step is to have an option for the tablet to be password or passcode protected if the women so chooses. And finally, to show the value of the tablet in the how-to guide, there will be a by the numbers sort of video that demonstrates how using this curriculum will increase yields, increase funds, and increase nutrition for her family. And although we may encounter additional challenges, we have prepared various programs to help address them. By bringing a food supply e-lesson curriculum to the women and addressing these potential challenges, we ensure they are equipped to sustainably produce food for their family as well as for their business. This e-lesson curriculum on the tablet is the key component of our program, as our next teammate, Danette, will highlight.
Thank you, Micah. An essential component in identifying a culturally relevant, gender-specific curriculum is engaging key stakeholders within Uganda. Creating a synergistic group of stakeholders that will include university researchers, civil sector organizations, community leaders, and Team Greenbelt to serve as a catalyst for the program's development. Each member of the collaboration has a unique and important role in identifying foundational curriculum topics. These stakeholders can assist in identifying existing curricula that can be modified to be placed upon the extension tablet system. They also can provide the leadership in the implementation of the program. Ugandan university researchers can offer new technical information on crop and production advances. Civil sector organizations, such as Field of Hope, provide a network of established women's groups that can be utilized for that program's implementation. Community leaders will be able to identify production challenges within their agricultural sector. And finally, Team Greenbelt will serve as an agent to create a seamless transition in curriculum redesign. The extension tablet system will be a culmination of existing curricula developed through various projects. The collaboration of key stakeholders will assist in identifying and selecting curricula to be transferred into further development. The extension tablet system is an e-static e-learning library that will center on 4 pillars of impact to benefit rural women and their families. The topics under each pillar will be fully determined through the synergy of the stakeholder group. The first pillar may include crops, seed selection, planting depth, pest diseases, harvest, and most importantly, post-harvest techniques. It is estimated that more than 50% of the crops are lost during post-harvest. Increasing yields during this time will also be addressing post-harvest will increase yields, thus more food for the family and food for the market. The second pillar would center around animal agriculture, breed selection, pest diseases, harvest, and as well as post-harvest techniques. That third pillar will be food for profit, focusing on the food consumption and profit. One, increasing more food for the family, as well as food for the market to sell. This would also address transportation, storage, and other areas of post-harvest that would decline in that product's availability to the market. The fourth and final pillar would center around family, health, and nutrition, focusing on prenatal care, pediatric health, food and diet nutrition that can enable that would be beneficial to her family. Although our extension tablet system is created for women, the system has a potential to educate the whole family. And our idea has broad and long-term implications that will be expanding the knowledge to her family, her community, and Uganda. Next, I'd like to introduce Garrett Brogan to discuss the impact and implications of this dynamic tablet.
Our solution will provide education to rural families and villages. Africa is currently facing a large gap to reaching gender parity, and if current pace is maintained, it will take 142 years to reach parity. Technology is being used as an innovative way to tackle this challenge. Even the World Bank and other institutions have committed to contributing over 25 billion US dollars towards the digitalization of Africa, all by 2030. And our innovation will jumpstart this commitment. This commitment will have far-reaching impacts as research demonstrates that technology can help developing countries develop far faster. Low productivity in the agriculture sector impacts more than just that sector, and our game-changing solution will make positive impacts upon all sectors, and particularly women. The tablets being used will contribute to the growth of their communities, but they will not contribute to the growing problems of e-waste. They will continue to be maintained, repaired, and when needed, recycled. The tablets will also be charged via portable solar packs. Simply giving the women a tablet would not be practical or sustainable because just over 42% of homes in Uganda have access to electricity. To maintain the sustainability of these tablets, we will create internet wells. These will be small homes or sites that bring internet via satellite to a local community. Women will walk a short distance from their homes to an internet well to get new content and, if needed, get repairs or updates on their tablet. This will be a well of knowledge. Universities and researchers will continue to develop new content, programs, and software, thus contributing to the sustainability of this project for years to come, as advances in agriculture are continually given to rural women. The cost of distributing information via technology is next to zero, and this will also contribute towards the sustainability of Uganda as a whole. Our solution will not only empower women in rural areas, but also women and youth across the country that are employed in creating new content, developing software, and conducting research. The technical divide between urban and rural populations and men and women will decrease. The Ugandans will be the ones contributing to the development of their country, one tap at a time. As Ugandans continue to digitally expand and we facilitate partnerships with key stakeholders, such as One Acre Fund, because of their connection with smallholder farmers across the continent, women will be given information and empowered at much faster rates than they would be using current methods. We only have to keep up. We know our innovation is only a stepping stone towards improving many of the problems Uganda faces, such as infrastructure, lack of access to clean water, or infectious diseases. But we know our innovation will empower 2.95 million women to feed their families and become more productive because they will be gaining access to one of the most important resources, knowledge. Investing in this effort will decrease malnutrition, and for every dollar invested, Uganda will receive in return $16. Women with these skills will also become 30% more productive in their agricultural outputs, and this will all contribute towards the GDP of Uganda, increasing it by 470 million US dollars. Ryan will now discuss further the financial impacts of our game-changing solution.
Thanks, Garrett. The last element we considered in assessing the viability of our recommendation were the financials. We expect the income of these women with tablets in their hands to increase by 20% or $158. As far as the cost of the tablet program, we expect it to be around $148 per tablet. We then take the difference of these numbers and multiply it by the number of users, which initially will be 100 with a 200% expected annual growth rate. We then take the present value of all future expected cash flows over the next 10 years and get an NPV of this project of $8.6 million. The financials and other elements of our presentation were discussed to assess the viability and lay out the details of our solution and answering the question, what could Uganda do to combat its agricultural gender disparity and the resulting malnutrition crisis? We recommend a tablet extension program that will empower women with knowledge by leveraging technology. We discussed the rollout, curriculum, impact, and financials of this recommendation. And though there are currently 15 million people in the country of Uganda suffering from chronic malnutrition, we believe that our recommendation has the capacity to empower 3 million women to become significant contributors in tackling Uganda's current malnutrition crisis. I'll now pass the time over to Micah to set the stage for our question and answer session.
Okay, so that was our presentation that we did both on March 5th, but then when we made it to the semifinals, we had 2 weeks to sort of work at it again, get some more information, narrow it down a little bit, and this is what we presented just 2 weeks ago, 1 week ago. The days are blurring together this middle of the semester. So that is what we did. And so for next steps, the beauty of collaboration is, we are across colleges, and Ryan is at the Mays Business School and has connections with various corporations. And so we are working with those connections now to try to get funding for this project to get it off the ground. But again, always looking at collaborations with those local civil sectors, such as Field of Hope, 1 Acre Fund, as we mentioned in our presentation. But always looking for advice and recommendations, and also here to answer any questions you all may have. So we can go ahead and jump into a little Q&A.
Well, excellent. Thank you so much, Micah. Thank you, Ryan and Garrett and Danetta. Just fantastic presentation. I am not surprised that you came out with the 3rd prize on a competition that you had never participated in. This was all an experiment, which is amazing that you made it to 3rd place in a field of 85, really competitive top universities. So wonderful, really well done. Well, let me start the question and answer if I may, as we get maybe other people to go ahead and put their questions in the chat group. You talked about this next steps, and you mentioned a little bit that because of Ryan's connections, maybe with some corporations, there might be a way to get some financing. So what do you see other than or in addition to a financial challenge, obviously, what do you see as other challenges that you may encounter if you had the money to go ahead and pursue establishing this program? What would be some other challenges?
In my part, we mentioned those other challenges that we may come across as we are implementing this program. And so thinking about a pilot program at first, again, with starting with 10 women before we go to the 100, because although we researched that it was culturally viable and they use technology, that just reinforces that by putting feet on the ground and seeing if those 10 women, it is useful, it's acceptable, then we'll move it up to 100. Another one is a return program. So how do the women, if they're finished using the tablet, if they don't want to use it, how would they return it back? So we have a return program of checking in after the first year and then quarterly to see if they would like to return the tablet. But again, as the curriculum is being uploaded, they can go to those internet wells, more curriculum is coming back to the tablet. The finance program is another part of it. If we are fully funded, this would not be a problem, but we do have ideas if it is not fully funded of maybe a scholarship program, having deposits, a mixture of all of them. We ensure as a team that if a woman does not have the financial means to have this, that does not deter her from being a part of those women chosen. A protection program in different ways, protection as in protecting the tablet from being broken, but also protection from being stolen, being sold, etc. So having a case that they can use, showing the value of the tablet, things like that help with that. And again, that works with the incentive program that we have as well, is maybe, partnering with 1 Acre Fund to get credit for seed, giving more than information, although this information is very important. How can we give them more so they can actually produce more yields? And then monitoring and evaluation. A lot of us are in research. We know that that's an essential component. And so having a M&E and component to see how is it going. So those are the ones we thought of. But again, I'm sure there's hundreds more that we haven't thought of, but we're trying to get the ball rolling of thinking about that.
Thank you very much. Very, very good. And I see that you've got a couple of questions. And the one I want to ask you now is related in a way to what you just answered. And this comes from Tim Hines. He asks, have you considered the consequences, intended and unintended consequences that you maybe are able to anticipate or not, that may be desirable or undesirable of this innovation?
Well, we didn't dive deeper into the unintended consequences, but some ideas that came up is that extension agents may feel that they're being replaced by the system, but more this tablet system is going to be more of a tool than to replace, because in realizing that women cannot leave the farm as much to utilize the system. Some other unintended consequences that were discussed as well, and it kind of elaborate that what Micah discussed was the selling of the tablet, because we know that the tablet has a value, but also we wanted to focus on utilizing technology that's already in the country instead of importing tablets from the United States. And so as technology continues to grow, we know that the videos that we create in the how-to lessons are the technology is there to house them. So, but we all know that unintended consequences, we can never measure them all, but those were some of the things we had discussed as a team.
Great, no, fair enough. And you're right, it's an ongoing thing that you have to continually do an assessment. So that monitoring and evaluation piece that you spoke of earlier, very, very important. Well, how about another question from, this is Dr. Jack Elliott. As your team has explored the realities of seeking funding and actually attempting to implement this idea, can you talk about your team's administrative expenses in terms of a percentage of your entire budget?
Sure. So based off of information actually, Dr. Elliott, that you've provided to us, we're very grateful for, we expect the administrative expenses to be between 10 to 50%. It really just depends if we're going on it completely solo, if we're going to be working and leveraging partnerships there in Uganda. That'll make a big impact on those percentages.
Thank you very much for that. We also have a comment from Dr. Manuel Pina from ALEC. He's praising you for the presentation, and he's offering the fact he's got some contacts there with in Uganda that you may want to reach out to him. So I'm just going to leave it at that. You can read his comments later. Another question, this is from Carmen Benson, who is a doctoral student in ALEC and actually used to work here at the Boardwalk Institute in our Asia region. She asks, if funds are limited in providing tablets to every woman in a community, which, you know, certainly that's the case. Her question is, how might you work within existing social networks to equip women who are opinion leaders in the community so they can disseminate the information that is gained through the use of the tablet to others?
Jeanette, will you take that question for us? You talk about the partnerships in your section.
Absolutely. And so I think that going back to is that our key stakeholders are going to be the ones that will assist us in enabling who can we work through. So if we can only say propose 100 tablets, but then we can look at community sectors, and then each tablet or 2 tablets could be in a community, thus them disseminating to more women. And some of the other organizations we talked about was Just Like My Child, the Girl Power Project, because they already have those key connections within Uganda. They're already working with key university researchers, the Ministry of Agriculture, the Ministry of Education. And so in looking at how this, when we chose Uganda, we chose it because 2 of our team members have a familiarity to it. So looking at how that tablet, if it's successful in Uganda, it actually can be expanded to other countries. So we're looking at how that could relate. But it goes back to, one, working with those key stakeholders within the group so that we are not just targeting one section of Uganda, but how could we get it to other sections with that same targeted availability to the women.
As well as like further expanding upon that, as we like know that maybe not having a tablet in every woman's hands that's our end goal, but maybe starting out, it may be just working in these groups or cooperatives. And so research tells us that women that are part of groups or cooperatives are given information faster and are able to be more productive in their agricultural outputs. And so working with these partnerships and potentially these cooperatives, potentially having the group leaders distributing information and training, then they're closer to the community rather than having an extension agent go individually to each person. So there's opportunities to expand it and really adjust this curriculum and the tablet idea to different nations, whether even it's a idea of creating like a library of where they check out a tablet and borrow and bring it back so multiple women can use it. we're just open to various ideas to make it so it's impactful upon these women.
Well, thank you for that. And certainly I appreciate that you're willing to go beyond only Uganda. We have, some projects that we're working on that we might be able to connect with. Okay, so hold on to that thought. I have kind of an interesting question here from our own Ann Pierce. Why is it that mainly women are producing the food in a country like Uganda? What are the men doing? Is their question.
Garrett, will you take that for us, brother?
Yes. So specifically with this, what was brought, Ryan, do you want to go to that, just your first slide about the proportions? And so this may answer a later question as well. But with this, women are usually the sole, they're usually the ones at home doing the agriculture output, as we know in a lot of developing countries, as well as caring for women, or as well as caring for their children. But they lack the productivity, whether it's skills or they also have to have that labor caring for children at home. They just have that split. And so men, they still are producing and working on these farms, but lots of times, if agriculture is not their sole job at home and they have another career, women are in charge of the subsistence farming on their home. And so that's why there's that lack of access. And then if men are able to leave home and go get these extension services, because their gender roles are very different in these countries, they're able to gain that knowledge and expertise. And potentially what we discussed as well is in certain countries, men have more access to other resources such as funding or gaining credit because of current laws and practices in place, especially across the African continent. And so women usually are the in a sense, sole providers at home, caring for children, but also in charge of the fields and crops. So there's just a disconnect between men and women, of men possibly going to get the information, but them not relaying it to their home, or a lot of single women as well. And so that's why there's that gap as well. And women aren't gaining access to these resources because they're not able to collaborate with other women through potentially cooperatives, or they're not able to understand maybe the practices that they're doing are actually harmful to their intended output.
It's certainly very true. And we find that to be the case in projects that we have at the Boardwalk Institute all over the world, is that a lot of it is cultural, let's face it. I'll never forget going to Kenya one time some years ago, and as we were driving through these fields, you saw the women doing all of the cultivation and the weeding and so forth on one side of the field. The other side, there was men, they were just sitting. And so, maybe they were just taking a break, but it just seems like you're right. A lot of the brunt of the work falls on women. Well, I have another question here. This is from Dr. Matthew Baker, head of the Department of ALEC. How much online content would you develop? And how might this content be designed in a culturally appropriate manner? Because, there's a limit. Obviously, you can't teach everything. So how might you decide what is it that you're going to focus on?
Lynette, can you take that for us, please?
Sure, and that's a great question. Going back to our key stakeholders to identify already existing curriculum that can actually be turned into what we call how-to videos, so that we're addressing maybe some illiteracy issues within the community or the families. And so when we're looking at that, in targeting the curriculum, it would have to be in short segments, but yet, we kind of have the idea of like when we struggle, we go online and find Google, and some 12-year-old tells us how to do it. But more what we were looking at is that there's been an extensive amount of energy placed into curriculum development over the years, that we can revitalize some of this curriculum that already exists, put it into a newer content, and then actually have it into how-to videos, as well as closed caption within the culturally, I think, Garrett, you'll have to correct me. I believe there's more than 300 dialects in Uganda. So then again, we're really going to have to depend upon those key stakeholders within the areas of Uganda to help us launch that curriculum. So I think in the big picture, when we also look at cost, is that this is really a tool that can go along another project. And so that can lower the IDC cost if it's kind of paired with another project. And then therefore, we're already using our key stakeholders with whatever groups we're working with. And, we know that Field of Hope has put an extensive amount of effort into their different curricula. So again, it's just making it short videos, tap and click. But then again, we also need to be the importance of what is challenging right now. So we know in Uganda, they're facing aflatoxin. So a key, that would be, again, that really goes back to how, that post-harvest technique. And then again, we would really have to have that kind of boots on the ground reporting to us what we should be looking for, because if they need, we don't want to be wasting effort on one's curricula when in fact we need to be looking at another. So it's really kind of going in with an open mind, working with, that participatory approach with our key stakeholders and how they evaluate the systems. And, they may have a curricula that they worked with in extension programs, but then again, can we utilize that and put it into an e-stat, it's basically a static curriculum. So it's, they're the only times it'll be uploaded is when they need to go to that internet well. So it's not indicative important of having that curricula that's going to be based online. It'll be based on that tablet.
Excellent, very good. Another question, this one comes from Connor Gregg, who's one of our interns at the Boardwalk Institute. He wants to know, where did you get the data regarding the 15 million undernourished individuals in Uganda? And how did you come up with the productivity gaps between men and women? All of that is excellent data. So I guess he wants to know, how did you find that? What were your sources, if you can address that?
Sure. We were given a case study to kick off the competition. And within that case study, they said that 35% of the population of Uganda, at least, was suffering from malnutrition. We took the total number of people living in Uganda and multiplied it by 0.35 to get 15 million. As far as the other statistics, Garrett, you want to talk about those? You're the one that found those for us, is the 80-20 split.
Yeah, so again, that's on that first slide, Ryan, if you want to go to that. But most of these, the research and the data that this comes from is, so it's other UN reports, as well as what's cited here, Farnsworth and Pelosio Lopez. They're just different reports on gender gaps, and as well, one of the biggest one is the McKinsey Global Institute. They did a gender parity recently, and there's lots of good data from that, of specifically across the African continent where these gender gaps are being faced.
Great, thank you very much. Another question from Tim Hines. Do you foresee that the empowerment of women could create a social dynamic that upsets the current balance of the roles and positions within the society? Is there a strategy to try to maybe educate men on the importance of empowering women as a way to contribute to the society, contribute to the family as a whole?
Micah, can you take that one for us, please?
For sure. So that is something that we really considered, and we spent, we didn't have a lot of time to do all this, but we spent a lot of time thinking about that. And one of the times that we thought significantly about that question in particular is that password and passcode on the tablet, and thinking of, would that cause issues between man and wife, mother and child? And so that's, again, if she so chooses, that is something that she can decide, but us providing that option. So that's something that we really talked about in that section, but also it applies in other sections as well. And so there are other, civil sector organizations that do work on educating men especially on looking at educating men. Ours is focusing on empowering women, but also, there's residual effects of this, right? So one residual effect is that a literacy rate. We're hoping that this helps with the literacy rate. Although that isn't our first number one goal, we're hoping that it helps with that. This is another one of those, is that residual effect of helping men recognize the importance of empowering women, but yet we understand our role in that we do not want to change their culture. It is theirs, and we need to allow them to have that freedom. And so that is something that we are very cognizant of, is providing that information, and they do what they want with it. So yeah.
That's fair enough. And, as you said very, very well, it's not the role of a team that works in a developing country to force, our way. We just demonstrate and show, and reasonable people will pick up on what's the value to them, and that's very, very important.
And to add into what Micah said is, the Girl, Just Like My Child, also known as the Girl Power Project, is beginning to launch a program for boys of how boys should be treating the women. And so again, we already are seeing some grassroots efforts that are taking place so that we're not reinventing the wheel, but we are the tablet in their pocket to extend what they're doing. And so it's really, understanding, and, one of the reasons why we chose Uganda is because we already have the understanding of within the culture, but yet we already have some really key stakeholders that are engaged in grassroots efforts that we can partner.
Oh, fantastic. Very good. Well, another question from Dr. Baker. He wants to ask you all to address the capacity that the public sector extension can have as a partner, and even also NGOs, non-government organizations that you might work with that are in Uganda.
Yes. And so when we were using the term civil sector organization, we were kind of using that term because it's more familiar within the European sector. So looking at the NGOs, Field of Hope, One Acre Fund, Just Like My Child, to help us with that. But also we're hoping to empower through the university system, the extension system that already exists. We know that especially with COVID, this tablet could be a different way of delivering information that once we depended upon an extension agent getting on a moto 2 hours into the country to meet with a group of women. So really, COVID has kind of launched this into a segment that might be utilized in other projects. And so while our target is women, we're hoping that having this availability within their hands, because the more you look at, say if a woman has the tablet in her hands, she can watch a video multiple times. So instead of that one extension program where, that would be offered, now she has a tablet in her system where she could watch something multiple times. And so we think that the actual adoption rate would be a lot there would be a higher adoption rate with this than a one-time extension effort. We don't want to replace the extension programming, but we want to assist it and give it a tool to expand it deeper and getting it out of the cities. And so getting it into those rural communities.
No, that is excellent. And I'm sure those extension entities would welcome this as a way to help what they're trying to do. Well, we have one last question, and I think you kind of addressed it a little bit at the beginning, but I think it merits repeating is, do you think that this is applicable to not just Uganda, but any other countries? And what I wanted to ask you is, knowing what you know of various countries that you may be more familiar with or as familiar with as you are with Uganda, what are your thoughts as to where else would you go with this? If you, for example, found a donor or supporter that was willing to help you with this, but they wanted to work somewhere else. So what would your answer be?
Garrett, will you take that one for us, brother?
Yeah, for sure. So one of the reasons why obviously Uganda was chosen is because of some of our expertise with it, but also looking up at the UN's least developed countries, Uganda was on there, and they also rank really low compared to other countries across the continent and malnutrition efforts, and well as like economic development and agricultural productivity. And so the amazing thing about this tablet extension system is, as Danette highlighted, the curriculum is developed by researchers and civil sectors and also those key stakeholders within each country. So they're developing curriculum that is current and pertinent to each country. And so that's what makes it possible to transfer it to other areas and allows us as well and other future researchers to continue to develop innovations and ways to help others. And so our idea won't just expand just to Africa, but it can expand to other developing countries in South America, in Asia, or even island countries because of what it does. And Some areas extension work is working better, and lots of, specifically in Uganda, universities do some extension work, but a lot of the extension work is actually happening through these partners such as One Acre Fund or Field of Hope. And so as we partner with them and find other groups to partner with in various countries, that will enable it to further expand and make an impact, especially upon women and especially upon these developed and undernourished countries.
To add to Garrett, as we were developing the tablet, one project that I had worked on, Dr. Morano, was the Avanza project. And so, Timor-Leste is a country that is also facing child stunting and malnourishment issues, but what we know that women are involved in the agriculture. So when you look at what key projects, that would be one that I think would be an easy fit and an easy transition to go into.
No, very, very, very true. I think the field is green and open to work. Well, I wanted to thank you all on behalf of certainly the Borlaug Institute, but on behalf of all of us who work in international development, because it's this type of idea that helps us advance, what we want to do around the world, in keeping with Dr. Borlaug's legacy of enhancing the livelihoods of smallholder farmers around the world, elevating them out of poverty and hunger through science. And this certainly fits that very, very well. Well, I am so proud of you all for the work that you've done it's not even been a month, as I said, that you came up with, all of this, participated in the competition and came out, at third place. So I expect that if not yourselves, that you will certainly be able to serve as mentors for another team to compete maybe next year from Texas A&M, and share your lessons learned and so forth. So thank you all very, very much. You give those of us who are on the latter part of our lives tremendous hope and confidence that we have extremely talented and dedicated young professionals like yourselves who are going to make a difference in this world and change it for the better. So thank you all very much. I will close by letting you know that our next and last seminar of this series at the Borlaug Institute will be held on April the 21st at 4 p.m. in the afternoon, not at lunchtime. And this is because our speaker is in Australia, and that's many hours from here, so that this is the best time that we could find. And it will be Professor Lindsay Falvey, who is a emeritus professor at the University of Melbourne. He's also the chair of the Board of Trustees for the International Livestock Research Institute, and many other roles that he has had in his life, his professional life. He will be speaking on a topic that he knows a lot about. He wrote a fantastic book about this, and it is agriculture and philosophy. So please stay tuned. It'll be April the 21st. As I said, at 4 p.m. We will send an announcement on how to log on and so forth in the coming days. So thank you all again for your attention, for joining us, for your wonderful questions. And we hope to see you all again on April the 21st for Professor Falvey's presentation. Thank you all. Stay safe.
Thank you for having us.